Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here with Mental Edge Training Coach. Today, I have one of my best friends, Nick Day, is going to be chatting with us. Nick Day and I grew up together here in Las Vegas. We went to high school together, hung out basically every day together through high school. So it's going to be fun to have him on board. He's going to share his experience about what it was like to be the top outfield prospect in the '96 MLB draft, what it was like for him, how he handled those pressures, and then how he eventually ended up going to Stanford, one of the best schools in the country, as we know. And then he's going to share his story about his stint in the minor leagues, what that was like, and then eventually being the head coach at Bishop Gorman and winning a national championship there, and also what it's like as a father coaching his 12-year-old son through the club scene and how he handles his interaction with his son. So hopefully you enjoy this conversation with Nick Day. Nick Day, my boy, what's up, man?
Hey Chad, what's happening? I've been waiting for someone to finally get me on so I can get my opinion out there. But good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a while. We were both in Vegas. We've been friends since I moved from Utah to Vegas when I was 11, 12 years old. Teammates, best friends. We were together day to day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like we talked about before, we can go so many directions with this. Let's start with number one. You are dressed in full uniform right now.
So I am.
Share that with us.
Down. I almost got undressed here a little bit, but let me put the wristband back on. I got the wristband. This is only for my little league team here.
There you go. Dusty Baker.
I gotta look official. If I don't, how's anyone gonna believe I'm a coach if I don't have a uniform on?
So we're recording this. It's Sunday afternoon, and my boy's in full uniform. Just a side story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I came to Las Vegas, my first year in Nashville, we came to Vegas. We're playing the Pacific Coast League, and I believe, were you still at Stanford at this time? Were you still in college?
Most likely, yeah.
It was in the summertime, right? So
you got to play in like 5 seconds. So yes.
So you show up, and I got all my family and friends there. It's the first time I've been drafted and then playing in my hometown. You show up. Tell us what are you wearing when you show up to the game as a fan and friend?
I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I was in full uniform.
You had my jersey on.
Yeah, it's in your full uniform. And I found like the oldest, biggest, Dale Murphy autographed glove that I could find in the garage. It was probably my dad's back in the day, trying to catch foul balls, and I was up on the front row hollering for you.
Yeah, like a maniac.
Yeah. That's it. That's me.
Try to embarrass your friend, and I don't know this guy.
Yeah. Especially yelling at your manager.
Right. So yeah, Nick and I, we go way back. Man, there's so many. Like I said before, there's so many different paths we can go down. Let's start with. I'm going to let you choose. What do you want to start with? Because this is the Nick Day show today. What do you want to talk about?
Well, there's so many things that I could talk about. I've been talking to my brother quite a bit. Chris, he's starting to get into the club ball scene with his youngest son. I always think that he's like 6 because he's small like Chris, but he's like 10.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably playing 10 and under. And Chris goes back and forth with, how to do things and how is this right or is that right? And so it brings up a lot of things, that I've dealt with over the years. I mostly think of myself as a coach now, not as a guy that actually played, but just some of the things that are the instruction going on, the club ball scene, especially here in Las Vegas. What's that doing to kids? What's that teaching them? Things are falling off behind me.
You're just fell off.
Whatever. It was a quick tape job.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's been on my mind quite a bit. Is this the best thing for our kids? Because I'm at the point now where I'm telling my son, who came back into Little League, and we were going to play his 12-year-old season here, let him have that run. And, I even was going to coach because you can't win that thing without a philosophy and a coach. You remember, every team's got kids that just throw gas at that age.
Right.
And, our league's got a couple of them. And if you don't have the right approach, I figure you have to go almost with 2-strike approach all the way through from first pitch, get their ace out of the game, because you get to 85 pitches, the kid's gone in Little League.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all this already planned out. Do you remember when Dante Bichette's team went to the Little League World Series?
He
coached
don't.
his son, and they went to the Little League World Series.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I remember watching, and every one of their guys had their foot down, everything early, and there was definitely a system they bought into.
Okay.
And, so I was thinking the same thing. But then I was thinking, after this, are we going to go back into the club ball scene? Is he going to, what are we going to do next? And so that's been on my mind too. And what's good about it and what's bad about it. And, I feel like if you don't do it, you get left behind the kids that are doing it. And if you do it, there's definitely some obstacles and things that I'm not crazy about, but it is what it is. And, just the reps is the most important thing, just getting reps. And so we'll be jumping back into that, and that'll be fun.
Yeah. I mean, like, speaking of reps, I had a conversation not too long ago with Taylor Myers about getting reps at a young age, right? Where we see these 8U, 9U, 10U teams. And I think it's okay to have those teams, but are we training these young kids that can't handle 4 days of practice a week? Their ligaments and their joints. And I brought Taylor on because he's had all these multiple injuries, and he was one of those poster boys for that young Little League stud that we used every single game, almost as much as possible. And now his arms just shredded,
We pretty much flipped 2 guys. We, Taylor Myers and Matt DeWitt, who pitched in the big leagues as well. It almost went every other game down the stretch with those 2. And man, that's we had a couple other good arms, but I mean, you and I both probably threw, just as hard as anybody out there, and we never even pitched in Little League. It's crazy.
In my case, thank goodness, right? We didn't need that act out there.
Well, I got lit up too. Let's not make any mistakes about it, but yeah, it is. It's a lot of use. It's a lot of wear and tear. I know some people take care of their arms well. They do a lot of, the proper exercises, the rotator cuff stuff, but you still got to wonder at that age, what effect does that have on them?
Yeah.
I did learn something interesting from my brother, who's a physical therapist, where Connor got back into it. My son, Connor, got back into it last spring at 11. And Chris had said, because of the way his body's developing, it's very important that he is throwing now, because it's a proven, I shouldn't talk about this because I really don't know about it, but it's proven that all these guys that are throwing through that growth period, they develop a certain muscle or a certain, I don't know what it is that makes them throw harder. And anyone that wasn't pitching back then, no matter what their arm's like, they never end up having the same kind of velocity as the kid that is. And it's interesting. So lucky for me, I've always been able to protect his arm, keep him fresh, not over pitch him. But I've also coached club ball teams, and you coach to win. You get up and you get the nerves and everything, just like the kids. You want to win, you're competitive, and it's hard not to throw your kids too much,
Right.
So
Right. Well, let's dive into, you as a player. We see the Stanford logo back there. So you went to Stanford. You were a very high sought after prospect out of high school. We're the same age. I was graduated in 95. You were 96 the year after me, and scouts were all over you the year of 1996 at Green Valley High School. Tell us, what was that experience like for you?
Scary. No, at the time I thought it was really cool, and I thought, and the cool thing for me was I saw it happened to you the year before, so I wasn't too surprised or too blown away by it. And I think it was able to keep me as humble as anybody can, because it it was more normal to me because I just watched you do it the year before. But, you know, as the weeks went on and you have, I don't remember if it was the pro, I think it was the pro guy. No, it was the college guys first because they're all trying to get you to sign early.
Yep.
And then it was all the pro scouts after that. And it's like every night at your house and you're, you know, trying to live your senior year and have fun. And I didn't think that any of that pressure ever got to me, you know, like that doesn't bug me. There's no pressure. And I remember I almost didn't get cleared to play because I had high blood pressure. Okay. And the doctor was like, what's going on with this kid? He seems to be in perfectly good health. In fact, you know, he's a big, strong athlete. What's the deal? And my mom knew right away and told him. And so, yeah, obviously I was feeling the pressure of all that. And I got off to a real slow start my senior year too, but, you know, figured it out, got back to normal and enjoyed the rest of it. But as cool as it is, it was definitely adds pressure and it's nerve wracking and all that stuff.
When you have all those eyes on you, what did you do? Because when I work with athletes one-on-one, there's those pressure moments, right? And how do you handle these? Like, is there things you can think about or do, or not just, you just don't worry about it. You just say that. Sometimes that doesn't work. What was it for you that, were you able to finally like block them out at some point, or how did you get through that?
That's a good question. And so I think for me, what it was is, I think I felt that at the beginning of the season and the pre-conference tournaments and things like that. But when it came down to it, I always was just a guy that could hit in the clutch. I wanted to be up to bat. I remember if there was 2 outs and big game and I was on deck, I mean, I would almost be praying just to get a chance. You know, I wanted to get up so bad. And once we got to those key games and those big moments, everything else just shut out. I didn't think about where I was going to school, what scout was watching me. It didn't matter. I could zone everything else out and really lock in. Mm-hmm. And if I was able to do that every at bat after that, you know, college, you know, a couple of years of pro ball I did play, you know, I could still be playing. My body's broken as it is, but you know, I could have played a lot longer, I think. But something, you know, something in me always clicked in those situations, and there was a different kind of focus. Yeah. And I wish I could have created that all the time, but I couldn't. I mean, it's too many at bats.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of training, right? Training yourself to figure out, okay, what points do I need to focus? I get that sign from my coach. Boom, I'm focused on my job is to see the ball and hit it. You know, when we get in the box before, it's like, maybe you're thinking about crap, you know, you're thinking about what pitch is thrown. You know, my girlfriend's watching me from the stands, that recruiter from Stanford's, you know, I know he's going to be here for the next 2 days. I better impress him, right? So if you're thinking about all those other things, the things that you can't control, we're going to have a really hard time of staying focused and paying attention to what we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And even little game things like, you know, we both had good speed, you know, especially for our size and you know, we stole bases and little things like just paying attention to the pitcher's move and his delivery and is he tipping anything? Some of that stuff you're not paying attention to because there's other things going on, and you forget about those little things that made you, you know, a good to great player because you picked up on those type of things. And yeah, all those things sometimes, you know, it's like, what inning am I in? This is so much going on.
Right. Absolutely. So you have a really good senior year. Scouts have been watching you all year. At what point, because you end up going to Stanford, walk us through how you got to Stanford, because you were still drafted out of high school, and walk us through how that worked for you.
Yeah, for me, you know, I've heard a lot of different stories and rumors about what happened behind the scenes, but I don't ever try to worry about that too much. For me, it was pretty simple. Once I committed to Stanford, it was going to take quite a bit of money to get me to not go to college. I had considered signing with some other schools. I think Arizona State was the front runner behind Stanford and USC. And I thought if I went to a different school, that I would probably consider signing for less. And, but still that I was projected to go kind of mid first round to mid second round. And when that projection kind of went back a little bit to mid second round to maybe third or fourth round, and then the whole Stanford thing with them not wanting to lose a top pick pushed me back a little bit more to the 15th round. And that made it a little bit easier on the decision. But
Sure.
it would have been really hard. But I just wanted to go play. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, school was great, and I can't imagine not having that experience now. But you know, as an 18-year-old, I wanted to just play and get there as fast as I could. You know.
And tell us who you were drafted by and who was your scout.
Well, so I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates at a high school, and I'm pretty sure showing up to your game was why I didn't get offered any money, because they're like, oh, never mind on that guy. No, but yeah, so draft that was actually a cool thing, because it's like, man, go get to play with Chad again, but you're already like 3 levels up, and I was like, no, I'll never play with him again. So,
But we were drafted by the same team by the same scout, correct? Roy Smith?
yeah.
Right. So I did a show with Roy Smith a few weeks ago, so you'll have to check that one out too. But now that's awesome. So your 15th round Pirates opted to go to Stanford, which as a scout now, anybody who's even committed to Stanford, we know for the most part that it's very likely they're going to go there. So we'll still scout them. We know it's going to take a lot of money to get that player from Stanford, because it's such a great education. And I think that's the way it should be. You know, that Stanford is Stanford for a reason. What was your experience like going to Stanford?
Well, Stanford is an awesome place, and you're right. The rumor mill was saying that I wasn't going to even consider anything less than $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where it came from, or who started it, or if that's just a typical, you know, what scouts think. But that wasn't necessarily the case with me, although ultimately it would have been close to that anyway. So
Sure.
And then I also dealt with, you know, in '95, your year, Chad Hutchinson was drafted by the Braves, and offered quite a bit of money and turned it down to go to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also a quarterback, so I don't know why the football team didn't want me. But no, the experience was amazing, because it humbles you really quickly. You know, you think you're cool because all the attention you just got the year before. You think you're going to be this big man on campus, and you find out that this girl lifting weights next to you in the weight room, who's outlifting you, by the way, won 3 medals in the Olympics at swimming, you know, Jane Thompson. I went to school with Carrie Walsh, you know, so the other kind of athletes that are there kind of humble you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then besides that, just how smart some of the people are, some of the other students. And you know, I went to school with Chelsea Clinton and became friends with her. So, I mean, and you've been to Stanford campus as well. It doesn't get any prettier than that and any better than that. So,
Yeah, it's amazing.
So really lucky to have that opportunity, and really glad that I didn't let baseball persuade me to go another direction.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean I'm sitting here telling people don't sign and go to school. That's just, for me, Stanford was definitely a blessing.
Yeah, so I was able to come hang out with you with our buddy Trevor Jensen for a few days while you were practicing. And I obviously I was done with, I think it was in the fall. I think I had some time in between there, and we're hanging out and just watching because I was like, well, what's this college experience like? You know, and you would tell us your schedule, and I'm like, yeah, this is insane. You know, and walk us through, like, because I know you had some ups and downs at Stanford. Tell us about your experiences there.
So, yeah, you're right. So I came in, and I'll go to the baseball in a second, but yeah, the schedule is insane. You know, you'll do your conditioning and weight training in the morning, grab some breakfast, and go hit class all morning. And you try not to schedule any classes in the afternoon because you got baseball every day. Mm-hmm. And those classes are difficult, but I learned quickly that as hard as it was to get an A, it was also probably going to be that hard to actually fail. And so you kind of learn how much work you got to put in and where you can find some balance in life. because that's important anywhere. You gotta be able to have some fun and have some hang out with friends and do all that kind of stuff. That's all part of college. So Stanford's no different. The guys I lived with and played with up there are still some of my best friends, and so you get that part out of college, but it's intense. The finals come around, and the best way I can put this is, who Eric Bruntlett is. A lot of baseball guys know Eric Bruntlett, utility infielder, played almost 10 years, won some World Series with the Phillies. He played behind Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley when they were at their prime, so he was behind the best two guys in the game, and he was a genius. He didn't go to class much. He'd flip through his book, and we took the same classes. We'd ask him how to do it, and he couldn't be bothered to teach us idiots how to do it. And we would get an A on the final, and we would study our butts off and have a real hard time trying to understand some of the stuff we were taught. But nonetheless, learned enough to get through and make some great connections. So that was it's just an awesome experience. You just can feel the prestige when you walk on campus and what it means to be there. So that's cool. And then, the baseball was some adjustments for me. They changed the way I hit pretty much from day one. And knowing what I know now, I shake my head at some of the things they had me do. And I'm not, knocking anybody, but they thought I had a long swing. And when I watched my swing in high school, I was very short to the ball and really long out front, which is what I would want my son to do. It's what I would want anyone to do. And they took it as just being really long in general. So they stood me up, took my legs out of my swing. I lost a lot of power. We had a lot of upperclassmen my first year, so I struggled getting the playing time I thought I would get. But even then, I was okay with that. I didn't give me a bad attitude. I still got to go to Cape Cod. Next summer. I got, I was Team USA trials that next fall. So things were still going well. But we always have new guys coming in, whether that be, freshmen, sophomores, whatever. So there's always someone behind you and there's always people ahead of you. And, you always got to fight for that spot. But I just remember the more that I got to see that Pac-12 pitching and those guys throw, the easier it became, the slower it became. You slow the game down a little bit, and then the baseball there is just awesome. The 3-day weekends and the great places to play in the Pac-12, and I got to go to the College World Series twice, so I was lucky, and do that whole thing, and that's just a blast. So I had a pretty good college experience.
Yeah, and you went there for, was it 3 years, and then you transferred out?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I went 3 years. If you remember, I tore my ACL after my sophomore year, so I was coming back from ACL surgery my junior year, and that summer I had an amazing summer up in Alaska, and I decided just so that I could swing the way I wanted to swing, I would go somewhere else. I went to BYU to play with Vance Law. There were some strategic moves behind that with the scholarship I knew that would be available. So that was fun too. And now I got all my BYU friends and got to play up there. But it was a long little journey to finally get a taste of pro ball and went through that. And that didn't last long, but that's all right. I don't have any regrets about any of it, and that's the thing.
Yeah. So you were a senior sign at a BYU, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And now who drafts you, and tell us about your minor league experience.
So I was drafted by San Diego, and so I got in the Padres organization, and the Padres put a lot of college guys in the short season league. Up in the Pioneer League I don't know if they're still there now, but that's where I went. And so I got to see a lot of young high school guys that were just drafted throwing, they threw hard, but they're used to just throwing their fastball by everybody in high school. And so for me, that meant I was going to hit really well. And so I was there for just a couple of weeks. I hit like 460 in that league with a few home runs. got moved up to the Midwest, and that changed real quick. Started seeing some pretty good off-speed pitches, and learned what real sliders were. And I didn't like those very much. And
You like straight ball.
yeah. Curveball is one thing. I could usually kind of pick it up at some point, but when you're throwing it just as hard as your fastball, and then that's not a fair pitch. That should be outlawed.
I agree. Yeah.
But anyway,
you should only be allowed 3 pitches max, I think. Like,
right? I remember the first time I faced a guy that threw 2 different sliders at me. Like, one was slow and one was hard, and I'm like, it was the guy I played with in the Cape, and I asked him after the game. I said, "Dude, that's not fair. How long have you been doing that?" He's like, "I've been doing that forever."
How dare you keep me off balance?
Yeah, it's not cool at all. But anyway, yeah, so my first season actually went pretty well, but when I got moved up, people probably don't know this, but you find out you're getting moved up after the game. They say you're getting on a plane at 4 a.m, call your parents, get packed. We're taking you to the airport, 2 a.m, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so you do all that, you're excited, and you say bye to your friends that you just had, and you go fly up to wherever the next club is. And that team, we were playing on the road, and we were in, I believe, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I just got to the stadium at the end of batting practice. Mm-hmm. I didn't take batting practice. I was tired. I was like, man, finally I'm going to just, get to rest a little bit. And lineup comes up on the dugout, and it's got me in the cleanup spot. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. And I actually hit well that game, but I think my last at bat, I hit a ground ball that was a little bit in the hole, so I had a chance to beat it out. And I pulled my hammy there and had hammy problems the rest of the year. Mm. And then the next year I saw, just because of those hamstring problems, I saw guys that I had, moved past the years before. I saw them getting more at-bats than me, and I saw some younger guys, that weren't great, getting a lot of looks and at-bats. And I talked to the minor league director, and I said, hey, I understand what's going on. I know these young guys need a look and they need at-bats, but we both know I'm better than they are. So if they're playing, it means you have them projected to be better than me. I get it. And I'm not sour about it, but if that's the case, I got I have a degree, I have other things to do. And so I left. Mm-hmm. And, and I do think that was the right decision. I do think that, at least with the Padres, they had kind of thought I was maybe an injury-prone guy, or just maybe wasn't going to make it, or whatever it is. But I could see that interest dropped just in 1 year. Right. And so I was able to recognize it. And I always think if you, especially if you've been to college, and the quicker you can get started on something else, the better off you are. So
yeah. No, it's tough because a lot of guys hang out in A-ball for a couple of years, right? And they don't have that awareness, and they're like, man, why am I only playing like twice a week? And they see these guys that are maybe prospects or whatever the case may be, they keep playing more than them, and you're like, why am I not playing? This is my 3rd year in high A-ball. I'm like, well, you're lucky you made it this far, 3rd year. Right. But I think that's right, because you were, you go through 4 years of college, and you're not 18 years old coming out. You're 22 or closer to 23. So 2 years in, you're now already 25. And at 20, like for me personally, my big league career was over at 25. Yeah. And I had a window of 21 to 25, and then that was the last time I sniffed the big leagues. So it's crazy how. And it took me my last year in AAA, and I got back into some things with it was the Marlins at that time. I got back into it. I'm 30 years old. I'm now an old guy. I got young prospects. Like,
how did I become the old guy? What's going on?
I'm like, God, I guess I've been playing a long time now. And
you get called a veteran for the first time.
Yeah, your grandpa or pops. And young players are asking advice,
You'd rather go hang out with the coaches than yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But
It
no,
is.
that's cool. So your playing career and ended there, and then now you start to transition and kind of starting to do some things. You did some financial services for a little while. Walk us through what happened after your playing career.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story because you and I grew up together, and we never thought in our minds that we weren't going to play pro baseball, in the major leagues for, a decent amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
When we were kids, we probably thought that was 20 years or whatever, but, knowing better as we got older, but still we thought we would have some stint where we made some pretty good money, and then who knows, but we never really thought about what we would do if that didn't happen.
Right.
And, in all fairness to us and me, if anyone, that isn't familiar with us sees this, we were both rated, top 25 guys. I was rated the #1 outfielder in the country when I was a senior in high school. You were the 10th pick overall. So this wasn't just two kids with a pipe dream. This got pretty realistic. And so when I had that talk with the minor league director, and I told him, I just can't see myself riding around in a bus from, town to town if I don't feel like I'm still progressing. And so I came home, now what's the world got for me? And you really go, oh man, I did not plan for this.
Now what? Right.
So for me, I've done a few things. You're right. I got into financial planning, and at the time, a lot of guys that do make the big leagues, who are friends of mine, maybe they'll let me manage their finances, and that would be a great career for me. It would keep me close to the game. What could go wrong? And I remember Eric Burns gave me a visit when he was with Oakland, and just as I was talking to him about what I could offer him and do for him, I realized, he gave me that time of his just because of the friendships we had made. He was he went to UCLA, I went to Stanford, but he was cousins with John Gall, who, is one of my best friends. And so he gave me the time of day, but I realized that those guys didn't look at me as a financial planner. They looked at me as the guy they were messing around with, back in Cape Cod or back in wherever, Yeah. So it was hard to think that those guys were going to look at me in that light. And so I didn't really like it other than that. And so I got out of that. A position in the construction industry fell in my lap as a project manager, gave it a shot, and I realized that I liked it quite a bit. And I thought, man, I can make a career out of this. Mm-hmm. So I did that for 5 years, and then the recession hit. And when the recession hit, construction in Las Vegas just stopped. And so that's, back in 2008. And I didn't get let go or anything, but the company I was with was going to try and keep everyone, but cut everyone's salary. And I was coaching a club baseball team. I didn't have any kids yet. And I thought, man, this is pretty cool. Coaching is pretty fun. I kind of have a knack for it. Why don't I give it a shot? Now that they're going to cut my salary, that was really what was holding me back, was the salary I would be giving up. And ended up getting a head coaching position at Bishop Gorman High School. Was pretty lucky. It happened my second year there, and made a little run there with, having some pretty good players. And, you coach with me a year, and some different challenges at that school, but when you have good players, they can make you look good as a coach. And we, so I had a blast doing that, and did that for 5 years. And, I had that program was, considered by Max Preps at the time the #1 baseball program in the country. And then it was like, for sure, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life, because this is awesome, right? And so I thought I'd go eventually we coached D1 somewhere, and we just come home and see Michelle, my wife's, the look on her face, you know, as she's trying to raise our little children. And it just hit me that, you know, if I'm going to be a dad, I don't know if the life of coaching is going to give me the time that I want with them. And I know a lot of coaches do struggle with that and make it work, but she never asked me to quit, but I did. And I got back into the construction business, and I've, you know, worked my way in pretty well and done pretty well there. So I still am working for a general contractor, but I get to go through not only as a, you know, a player and then a coach at a pretty good level, but now as a coach dad, and that's a whole new experience. You know, it's a lot of pressure for your kid if, you know, when they hear all the stories about you, and they don't want to hear it from you, you know. They want to hear
or listen, right? They don't want to listen.
Yeah. So I've learned how to kind of deal with my own son, when to push on him, when to leave him alone. And the cool thing now, he's 12. There's certain things I want to say to him, but I keep my mouth shut, and I watch him make his own adjustments. And that's pretty cool. I think, wow, man, I was just about to say something. I'm so glad I let him make his own adjustment, because that taught him so much more. And so it's pretty fun. He's got all the tools to be as good as he wants to be. He's just hasn't played as much as a lot of kids his age yet, but you know, he's enormous. He's fast. He's got a rocket for an arm. So now I get to go through this whole next few years of figuring out what to do with him. So, but that,
yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, and I want to say, and maybe even there was a conversation with your mom, because I'm really close with your mom. She was like my second mom growing up, and if I remember correctly, it was something along the lines when he first started playing Little League, that you were somewhat hard on him, you know, in regards to whether it's making a mistake or stuff that we can tend to do as a coach and a parent, especially your kid. But how was that when he was younger, and how did you make your adjustments as a father?
So when he first started, when he first started playing Little League at like 6, it was like coach pitch. I would come to his game right after practice. So I'd be in full Bishop Gorman uniform, and I terrified all the umpires and coaches in the league that we're going to do something wrong, you know. In fact, I remember one time the umpire asking his coach to tell me to be quiet, and his coach was like, I'm not saying anything to him. On your own, you know. So, but it was just cute watching him play then. And then I actually wasn't going to coach him the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a letter from the Little League saying his team didn't have a coach, and would any parent volunteer? And I remember writing that email saying, I'm probably qualified enough to coach at that level, and sure, I'll do it. And I think my mom's probably right. I think some of the team frustration I probably took out on him a little bit, but I think my mom is one person, like many other parents that I've had, that mistake my excitement and intensity on the field for as yelling at my kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, you know, you want them to learn how to play the right way. So time to time you get hard on them, and then you think they understand that you're doing that as a coach, and it is a challenge. And so that's one thing I really had to work on when he started coming back, was to really lay off him. Like when we talked about what he did right or wrong, I would do it after the game in the car. He didn't like it if it was in front of his friends, you know, in front of his teammates. That's when he shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned to, even if it meant 2 more at-bats of the same thing, I was going to let it go. Talk to him after the game. He was much more receptive to it. And now he's, you know, a lot more confident where he can make those changes. I can say stuff to him now, and he, you know, sometimes he gets mad, but other times it's just, okay, I got it. And he can, you know, I don't get the same butterflies I used to get when he played, you know, 2 years ago. Now it's like, oh, he's got this. I don't need to worry about it, you know.
Yeah, because he took a step away from the game too, right? Took a little break, and that you would say that was pretty beneficial for him.
Yeah, it scared me because I thought he might not ever play again. And, I remember, so it's a good story. He's like 9, maybe 10. And he says, Dad, can I talk to you in private? We're out at the park at someone's game. Can I talk to you in private? And I'm like, there's nobody out here, dude. But it's his way of saying, I got a serious conversation. So yeah, what is it? He's like, I don't want to play baseball anymore. And my first thought as a coach of this club team was, yes, I need to break this team up, but I'm too nice to cut anybody, especially anyone that was loyal to me from the beginning. I couldn't cut, but I also knew we weren't going to compete with what we had. So I'm like, awesome. That's the way.
Let's stop right now.
Yeah. But I just told him, and it was the right answer. Of course, I just said, hey, man, listen, bud, you got to do what makes you happy, not what made Dad happy, not what makes anyone else happy, but find what makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
Dad, I don't care. We can try basketball. We can do flag football. So he got to play some basketball. He's always been a big kid, so he did really well there. He goes out for football for the first time. He ends up taking the quarterback's position from him. I'm like, awesome. He's smart. He sees the field, makes quick decisions, but he hates it because he's not scoring the touchdowns.
Okay.
I'm like, are you serious? Like you got everyone wants to play quarterback, but
right.
But that's okay. But then, yeah, like I said, we were playing catch, and I said, you sure you don't want to try one more time? We'll go back to Little League. I'll shut up. I'll give your coach help if he needs it, but I promise I'll lay off you. But you're throwing really hard. You should play.
Yeah.
And so he came back and had a lot of success last spring, and kind of became the ace of that all-star team. And once he started getting success, and then he started learning how to hit a little bit, that he's now he really enjoys it because he's, he kind of gets the oohs and ahs in batting practice. And it's funny when you're good, how you like something. And he's got a different personality. I'd say he has way more tools than I had, but I just loved playing, and I was a little bit more scrappy than he is.
Mm-hmm.
But man, if he puts it together, work ethic, I always say he's got your kind of tools, like your strength at that age. I mean, you and I explain this. I say, people always ask, was I as good as you, and this and that and the other. And so there was a big difference. I was a good hitter, and I got my home runs, and I did all this, but there was something that you had that was just electric. And I try to explain to people, your hands were so quick, your hands were like lightning, and it was your strength that just, got your hands through the zone so quick. And he's kind of got that same, fast twitch, real strong for his age, and it's pretty fun to watch.
It's the egg protein shakes at 8 and 9.
What I've learned is if you play Fortnite for 5 hours a day, you actually develop pecs. Pecs and a bead back, and it doesn't do anything. It's not fair.
But yeah,
I was in the weight room trying to look like that, never looked like that.
That's interesting because in all the conversations I've had so far, like the video games that have been brought up, my son loves video games. We kind of, as parents, go through it, and you're like, okay, we try to set boundaries and hours, and okay, you have 1 hour to play your game. And then they get older, and then they realize, well, that's all kids are doing in their spare time is just playing their video games. And they don't, occasionally they go over to friends' houses. You and I lived at your house, or you lived at my house.
Right.
And we would play a video game for an hour, but mainly we were outside, right? Yeah. And typically playing basketball. We weren't even playing baseball, maybe wiffle ball occasionally.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we were always doing something. So I miss those days.
One is our video games weren't as good.
Yeah.
But this is what I've learned from having a son and a daughter. So my daughter's 10. JC's 10, Connor's 12. JC is a social butterfly, and she loves hanging out with her friends, and wants to do something every minute with one of her friends. And she does her sports too. She plays club soccer. She's doing really well. I don't worry about her one bit. She's She's like, 16-year-old and she takes care of herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way boys hang out now is on the headset, on the video games. So if he was to go to a friend's house, they get bored because they both can't be on the game console at the same time.
Right.
And so the only way they can play the video game together is he's got to come back home, take his console to their house. It's kind of messed up, but
Yeah.
but it's like all they want to do. And I worry about him if he's getting the social skills that he's going to need in life.
Right.
And his personality is different than Jay-Z, but still, he's missing out on a lot of just social interaction. And yet, we were limiting the game as well. We even made him sign a contract.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it got. And with COVID-19, we backed off a little bit because he's been stuck at home for so long. But that when he gets in these, he's more angry he's an angrier person. He's got a temper.
Yep.
When he gets on the games too long, and it's amazing to watch it happen in front of your eyes. You see the articles and you know it, but then you actually see it and you see their personality change. And it's like, as a parent, like, all right, we got to stop this or limit this. So once he hits about the 2-hour mark, he becomes the Incredible Hulk. He just transforms into an angry person. And so that's when we got to cut him off.
Yeah, no, so there's a boundary, there's a time. And, my oldest is a 20-year-old female. My daughter, she could care less about video games. It's just my son, basically. And that's talking to other parents. Like, yeah, it's the boy usually.
Mm-hmm.
Then the girls just they're more like on the TikTok side or the apps, right, with their phones and shooting videos and all this type of stuff. So it's different because it's just a different time. I'm sure we would have probably done the same thing, made TikTok videos, and we used to think we were boys to men.
We're not.
we were pretty close. We were probably the next New Kids on the Block, along with a couple of our other buddies. But looking back, what's funny? Bracken was going through we were moving some stuff around, cleaning up the house during COVID, as we're stuck, and she found some old tapes, and she popped in a tape of you and I singing, and I'm like, wow, this is so bad.
Yeah, we thought. The problem here's the problem is people told us we were decent, and they should never have lied to us like that.
Right. Well,
they encouraged us.
Well, it worked for me because I married my high school sweetheart, and you found yours a few years later. And
well, the funny thing is, I found mine actually when I was playing the guitar and singing in shows.
There you go.
Know me as an athlete.
Yeah, you kept with it. You became a guitarist. You actually at my wedding sang Green Day's "I Hope You Have the Time of Your Life."
That's
you were
right.
The vocalist. I think Sean was the guitarist, my brother, and just killed it. I got that on video still too.
Yeah, the thing that I'm most jealous about not playing baseball anymore is watching Barry Zito on The Masked Singer. Did you see Barry on The Masked Singer?
I didn't see that one. Yeah.
So Barry and I were friends all through. We got to play in Team USA together in high school and all the area code games, and then faced him in college all the time at SC. So we got to become friends and everything, and I knew he sang and I knew he played guitar, and I told my kids the first episode, Masked Singers were some celebrities ask, you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Through his clues and the very first song he sang, I said, that's Barry Zito.
You knew it right away.
The only one I've ever gotten, but yeah, I knew it was him. It was awesome.
I would say Bracken and I picked out Donny Osmond the first year right away. Like, that's Donny.
I didn't watch the first season, but yeah, that one was pretty obvious.
That's awesome. So yeah, you actually now did you actually had a band, didn't you, for a little while?
I had a couple pretty bad bands, yeah. Yeah, I had one in college where, I sang to some girls and, thought that was cool.
Right.
And then I had a couple after I was playing and stuff, being a young single guy.
Yeah. We're like chicks dig guitarists, right? Rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't be an athlete, athletes want to be rock stars want to be athletes,
That's right.
But I tried both and, was decent at both, but never, couldn't quite make it in either one. So it's all right. You know,
That's
and my
awesome.
dad's a musician, so.
That's right. Yeah, your dad has. If you ever seen Blue Man Group here in Las Vegas, he did the music, the sound. He was like a soundboard guy for the Blue Man Group, right?
Yep, sound man, sound engineer is the
Sound engineer. Yeah,
proper title.
yeah.
Yes.
Amazing singer, has tapes of his own. Yeah, that's outstanding. So I want to go back to your Bishop Gorman days as the head coach. As we were texting earlier, talking about a few things. So you have full claim that you made Joey Gallo who he is today. So tell us about that.
You know, when I got to Gorman, my first year, I was just helping out, just kind of the you know, top JV guy as the head JV guy, and then I was a varsity assistant. And Joe was just a freshman, big, sloppy, uncoordinated, never hit a baseball before, and I started working with him solo in the cages. And I said, Joe, you know, that ball probably would have went like 420 feet. That's not good enough. And
We got to go
more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I get all the credit for that. And so yeah, you know, I took over in 2011 as the head coach at Bishop Gorman, and Joe was going to be a junior that year. Of course, he was already. Of course, everything I just said was a lie. He was he was, you know, a stud. And, you know, what a lot of people don't know is he threw 100 miles an hour in a game on the mound. Mm-hmm. So he could have easily pitched too. But with him, it was more just helping him make little adjustments when he would start to pull off the ball or, you know, not get that true backspin that he wants to get on it. But with him, it was more trying to prep him for playing pro ball, how to handle himself, you know, what to expect, things like that. But, you know, there wasn't much. It was how quick can I get Joe out of a slump if he's in one. Right. But, you know, he was already on his way to do great things. So it was a blessing to get to coach him because he was he was a great leader. And, you know, we had an assistant coach, Ben Rosenthal, that would condition him, and he would pick out Joey. And we let Joey know that we were doing that for a reason, you know, that if he could take it, then everyone would follow. And he became a great leader, taking ground balls before practice and doing all his work. And real good to have a guy like that around, especially when you're just becoming a new coach and you're trying to get everyone's respect. If you get that guy's respect, everyone follows, right? So that it's pretty lucky to get a guy like Joey Gallo your first year coaching.
Absolutely.
The other 10 guys that were awesome players there too that year, right?
Yeah. So you brought me over. I was in the transition of jobs myself. I was already done playing with my career, and I was working in that NCSA, a scouting recruiting organization, and that had ended over there. So you would call me up, you're like, dude, like, come help me coach at Gorman. And I'm like, I think it took a couple calls because I was like, I'm not sure. I should probably find a full-time job. And, you know, I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of fun, you know, just because if you know Gorman is who they are. But, you know, we were both Green Valley guys. So it's like going to your rival school. You're like, it's like wearing the wrong color, right? It's going to the enemy, essentially.
You're selling out, dude.
You're selling out. Yeah. So it's you kind of get over that a little bit. But I'm like, dude, I'm going to, if you call it work, every day with Nick, Chris Latham, Ben Rosenthal, and then Mike Nanini came on board. Greg Maddox would show up because his son Chase was a JV, and he'd help out with some pitchers here and there. So I was like, this is outstanding. So then you had Joey Gallo. We know who he is. Then you had who we didn't even really know that he was going to – maybe we kind of knew, but we had Nick Gates, who is now playing in the NFL with the Giants, right? So you had two legit professional athletes on this team. And what do you know? We won the national championship that year. And during that whole time, I told the story many times that year is what got me into scouting because I saw Joey Gallo, Lucas Giolito, all these guys and all these scouts everywhere. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. Yeah. So I only coached there a year with you, and I'm like, we just won the national championship. I got nothing left to prove here. You know?
Yeah, right. What's next? Check
Yeah,
out.
yeah, and you stayed there, I think, a few more years, and then things just didn't work out. You know, you kind of have your own story with that, but man, that was a fun time. You know, and just being out on the field with those guys and the caliber of players. You know, I never had any issues or problems with Gorman kids. You know, when you're kind of on the outside, everybody wants to beat up on Gorman because
Of course.
you know, and that's kind of the way it is. But I'm like, I still coach kids at this scout team with the Dodgers right now, and every kid comes from Gorman is awesome. You know, they're hard workers. They do their thing. Yeah, they might drive a Tesla, you know, or they might drive a Range Rover, but is what it is. They still put their work in.
Yeah, there's a big difference in the student parking lot and the teacher parking lot on the cars, right? So,
That's right.
that's fun. No,
Yeah.
it's a great experience, and like you said, you know, I had all you guys to help me out, and I think with a guy like Gallo, I think, you know, the talent was just off the charts. Everybody knew it, but to have a guy like you, who was also a first-round pick, that went through the same things he was about to go through, a guy like me, you know, the name might not have been there and stuff, but I went through the same things myself with the pro scouts and all the attention, and to have a couple people like that can walk you through that and help you with that is, you know, I think that's the best thing a guy like Gallo could have. I mean, he was going to hit no matter where he was, and no matter who he had, he was going to figure it out, you know? So, it's just a pretty cool experience to get to have a guy like that. And then, you know, to have a guy like Caden Grenier, different player, but to have a middle infielder like that and then work with him, you know, basically from 8th grade through his senior year and watch him develop was special. There's not a lot of high school infielders that can do what he was doing. And so we're definitely spoiled a little bit with the guys we got to work with. But trying to teach them, whether they wanted to listen or not all the time, just about, I used to tell them, don't give scouts any reason to not like you. You know, they already like you, they're here. Don't give them a reason to not like you. And as you know, sometimes that advice was not listened to very much, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's good advice because I've seen that a lot as a scout going to there's some places here that I went to some games locally, and I'm like, wow, you know, kind of surprised at the actions and the antics that were going on. And you know, some scouts don't really care about that stuff because that might be a part of the makeup that you're trying to put together and give to your front office, you know, but are they glazing over that information, or are they taking it serious? Or like, yeah, this kid might be a little it's just maybe immature, you know, this time, and might need a few years, or we just need to really pay attention and stay on this kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Your actions say a lot, you know, your baseball actions and your actions that aren't on the field. They say a lot. You know, a real good story about that is Coach Horton at Oregon called me and asked if he should come see my shortstop. That was Grenier, right? And I said, yeah, you probably might want to come down and see him play. And he came down to San Clemente. When we go down to those California beach tournaments, the ball's not going anywhere. It just gets in that dead air. Gallo's the only one that hit it 800 feet in that air. But I remember this tournament where Caden Grenier probably went 0 for 23 that weekend. But his baseball actions and the way he handled himself in the field, Coach Horton asked me, he said, what do I have to do to get that kid to come to Oregon? And so, you know, often we think it's what our stats say and what, you know, was I throwing 91 or was I throwing, you know, 94 right. Or man, I was 0 for 23. I just ruined my whole chance. You know, no, it's these guys can see how good you are by the way you swing, the way you carry yourself, the way you move. It's not always, you know, about stats and what you did that particular weekend or whatever. And I think sometimes the kids don't realize that and they get hung up on the wrong things, but that was always a good learning experience. Even, you know, as much baseball as I had seen, that was a good experience for me to hear a guy like Coach Horton say that to me, like, oh, that kid's awesome. I'm like, he just sucked up the field. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it goes a long way. Yeah, it's because they know, like, well, this kid, okay, what's the history? Well, he's been playing shortstop since he was a freshman, or at least sophomore, every day since his sophomore year. So he must be pretty good there. And you just start putting all these things together and knowing, because I think when you're a player and you've been through it, you know you're going to have your 0 for 20. Yep. And when does that happen? You don't know. But when it happens, it sucks, and you're trying to battle it, go through it. But then something clicks. You figure it out. You get a little duck fart over the second baseman's head, but you still play the game hard every day, right? Mm-hmm. You still put that full effort in. You can still be a great base runner. So you can still steal bases. All those little things that the coaches are really paying attention to. That's where we really stress with some of these players individually on a scout team. Like, dude, you got to do these little things. If you're lazy on the bases, because if I'm there specifically to watch you, I'm watching you every move, right? If you're taking your shuffle, then you casually walk back to first, you're Joe Cool. Like, this kid, he has no intention to get to second base.
Right.
Like those little things, like, that's what we're looking at and picking up on. And so it's being aggressive, right, the whole time, and looking to get that extra base to score. So it's interesting. That's good. And I like that with Grenier, and thanks for sharing that story. That's great.
Yeah, and I used to try to tell these guys, hitting is the same for everybody. At least the good hitters. Hitting is a cycle. You hit good, you're hitting great, and then you're hitting so great and feeling so good. You're like, I'm gonna hit 3 home runs today, and you try. Right. And then you try to actually hit 3 home runs, and your swing got a little bit long, and you were 0 for 3. And now you're frustrated. You were 0 for 3, and you try even harder next game. Now you're 0 for 6. And so all of a sudden, now you're in a slump.
Right.
I was just doing great. Now I'm in a slump. And then you got to work hard in batting practice. You make these adjustments to get out of the slump. And like you said, maybe you get a bloop over the second baseman's head, but it's because you made an adjustment. And now all of a sudden, a couple balls drop. The swing comes back, you fix whatever, and you're hitting good again. And then eventually you create a couple bad habits. And I used to tell the guys, I say, the best hitters and the ones that separate a guy like me that couldn't get out of A ball to a guy that plays 20 years in the majors is those great hitters. Their slumps are shorter and shorter and shorter because they make their adjustments faster.
Yeah. And
then when they're hot, they're able to stay hot longer because they don't get overexcited. And so the longer you can stay on your hot streaks and limit the amount of time you're in your slumps, that's gonna equal success.
Absolutely.
And that's, a lot of that's up there in the head and what goes on up in the head,
Yeah. Speaking of that, when you were at Stanford, one of the best schools in the country, did they do anything? Because a lot of schools now have like a mental skills coach or a sports psychologist. Did they have any of that back when you were in school?
They didn't. They didn't then. They may now, because it's become more of a, more of a well-known thing. And I would love to ask, I sent 3 guys there, and I'd love to ask them if they do something like that now, because I believe I heard that they do. And I know when I did transfer the 1 year to BYU, I took a class about sports psychology, and it was geared specifically for baseball and softball. Okay. And I took it as just a free credit to be eligible to play baseball, because I was at BYU. I was taking 12 credits, and that's it, because I was going back to graduate from Stanford, and I so I took that class with a lot of softball players.
Okay.
And some of their things were just a little too extreme for me, about the way they prepped and what they were looking at and studying and focusing, and some of it made me laugh. But then as funny as some of that is, there's also some really good things out of there too.
Sure.
And sometimes, you don't even realize that's an issue until it's an issue, right? I mean, you can go 20 years of playing baseball and never have a thought in the world about it. And then one day you're frustrated and you've never had to deal with it before. How do you deal with it at that point, right?
Mm.
And I think so addressing it early can save a lot of people's careers. I was coaching, going back to Gorman, Jack Little, I told Stanford, he is the best freshman pitcher I've ever seen. You guys got to go get him. They go get him, and he gets, the yips his sophomore season at Gorman. And, I wasn't worried about Stanford, but I was worried about the kid. I love the kid. And luckily he got himself out of it, which is hard to do, especially as a pitcher. And then had a great career at Stanford and got drafted. But yeah, it's a funny thing. It can happen anytime to anybody. And you and I both know it's not just the yips or a throwing thing. There's a lot more to it. It can be an offensive thing. It can be, fielding the ball, whatever it is. But it doesn't. It's just one of those things that might not happen until it happens.
Right.
And then what do? No one's ever taught you or prepared you for that.
Yeah.
I look at with you, I know you better than anyone, and your career better than anyone, really. And I would even watch you come down to the minor leagues to AAA, and you're just hitting missiles right away. Just like, I'm like, man, he's hitting the ball hard. And then I watch you on TV in the big leagues. I'm like, it's usually a pitch he wouldn't take. Yeah, just saying, no, I kind of saw with you just some of the aggressiveness in the big leagues compared to even AAA. And, it's just, I don't know how I never got to that point, but I mean, how does anyone deal with that when they haven't been prepared for it?
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of that stemmed for me was I started to think about things that I never thought about in the minor leagues. I would just go play, right, and trust my talent, trust my ability. Then when I would get up to the big leagues, I felt like I had to live up to something.
You had to prove you belong there, right?
You have to prove you belong there. You have to prove that you were worthy of that first round pick, that you're worthy of being the next best prospect since Barry Bonds, which was Pittsburgh. And
for you, there was a lot of pressure. Sports Illustrated, right? National League Rookie of the Year is going to be Chad Hermansen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, that's kind of when the whole point of all this is when that hit me at roughly age 20, 21. Like you said, you don't know when it's going to hit. That's when it hit for me on the biggest stage, right? How do I cope with that? How do I handle that? I guess I just try to figure it out. Like, no, it'd have been nice to actually have somebody to talk about with it, or at least share it, because that's the biggest thing. Is like you want to be a man, you want to go through and figure it out, and that's a big part of it, right? You want to figure it out, and like I can do this. But there's also when you talk to other coaches and like my Jeff Bannister, my manager, he's like, yeah, I wish we kind of would have handled things differently. Or just giving you something or someone to go just talk things out, and maybe put a game plan together on how to handle that. Because I know that personal friends that are mental performance coaches at the big league level, these big leaguers are having those same, like, it's not new, right? It wasn't just me or somebody else. It's not a group of 5 people that it happened to. It's baseball. So it's learning how to cope with it, get through it. Learning how to not let people down, that it's that's not your job or goals with other people. Like, just go figure it out, work on it, talk about it, figure out what you need to work on with your swing. There's so many, you go work it out basically, and have some type of game plan and just dive into actually how you're thinking about things. You're like, God, why am I thinking of it this way? And having, because you're in your own little mind and bubble. And then someone comes along and says, hey, well, what about this? And you're like, I didn't even think of that. Right? That makes total sense. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And everybody's different. For me, I never once, thought about, when I throw this ball, is it going to go exactly? Yeah, when I was going to throw, I knew it was going to go there. I didn't think about it. I didn't think what my mechanics were. It just did. I was very accurate even from the outfield, but when I got to my last season of A-ball, and I started wondering, like, do I want to do this if I'm not feeling like I'm a big prospect on their list, you know?
Yeah.
And this isn't, and I'm not bad mouthing the Padres. I understand. I was, you know, it wasn't, I'm not saying they made a bad choice or anything, but once I was kind of started thinking, am I in this all the way? I couldn't hit. I mean,
yeah. When you
have
kind of
to be,
checked out, you were
yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah. I got up there and felt like I'd never been in the batter's box before.
Right.
And it was a weird feeling. And maybe for me, it helped me make my decision a little bit easier, but yeah, it was weird. The thought process was different, and it's hard to overcome. And yeah, if you don't get help for it, or no one prepares you for it, because you know, growing up, we had really good coaches. I mean, we had one of the best ever, you know, especially in Nevada, and nobody ever talks to you about, hey, at some point you may hit a wall that is hard to overcome, and it has nothing to do with your ability. This is what you need to do, right?
Right.
So how do you? And I think they've come a long way since then, but yeah, it's just an interesting, you know, fact that we didn't really talk about back then.
Right. Yeah. No, it's good. I'm glad it's starting to get out a lot more. And, you know, I think it's always a little bit of a hurdle with the younger kids, high school and below. Working with a college team now, you know, and they individually will text me like, hey, when can we set up a call? You know, because and I always tell kids it's not necessarily because you have like quote an issue going on or happening, but you're like, yeah, I'm going through this, but like, how would you handle it? You know, I help them, give them some options, talk about it, you know, in a way, help them get this interference that's happening for them out of the way, and so they can, you know, move forward in some way, you know, and like, hey, let's try this, see how that works. Give it a little bit of a time. It's not, I'm going to try it once. Nope, that didn't work. But
Right.
give it some time, some reps. Um, but no, it's fun. It's great. And I think it's opening up. We hear the mental health thing a lot with kids being depressed, high anxiety, all this stuff. Now that's a whole different ball game. But there's things that you can learn and share and talk about that at least give some tools and strategies to go out and cope with what they're dealing with daily.
Yeah.
So
Right. They have a whole set of you know, our younger generation has a whole set of things that we didn't deal with, and um, when as an adult you hear about some of those, or as a father even, and you realize these things are real. It's nice to know someone out there might be helping them, or there may be someone for them to talk to. I had a student tell me they were contemplating suicide when I was teaching, so that was you know, a big eye opener to me. And how do I handle it? You know, here I have this young adult telling, you know, showing their confidence in me, that out of all people I'm deciding to tell about this, it's you.
right.
I mean, that's a big responsibility, and luckily I put them in the right direction. And I did the right thing, but it really opens your eyes, and the more, you know, the kids are on screens and talking, you know, on social media, and this is the new way of communication, and you know, some of this, the personal interaction is kids really lack, and it creates all sorts of issues, whether it be baseball or not baseball, or any sport, or just how they're feeling at home or feeling wherever. And they're serious issues. And I think it's awesome that there's people out there like yourself that are finally, you know, looking at this seriously and trying to prepare kids for what could happen or what they're dealing with at this particular time. And man, I hope there's more people that get into it as well, because there's more people out there that need the help than we ever realized.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and that's what's shocking. Like with the older kids, like I was saying, the college kids, that they, in my short time working with them, I'm surprised in a way of like how open they are right away. You're like, yeah, I'm going through this. What do you got? You know, what can you help me with? And a lot of it's mainly baseball, right? It's like maybe dealing with a coach, or hey, I'm struggling, or I'm in a slump. But the another part of that is it's giving me a lot of anxiety, where
Yeah.
I'm nervous about going to the park. I'm nervous about my performance. Like, how do I cope with these things? So I think that's where we all, like you said, sometimes it happens when you're 20. Sometimes it starts to happen when you're 8 or 9, because
Yeah.
you feel all this pressure to perform.
Right. And that goes right back to what I was saying in the very beginning with club ball. Is this
Yeah.
good for our kids, or is it harming them? Are they feeling too much pressure too young? And I know there's some people out there that'll say, uh, that's a bunch of crap, Nick. Maybe your kid's not tough enough or whatever. No, that's not true at all. Is this good for them to feel these kinds of pressure where they get bumped to a practice team at age 10 if they're not performing, or
Right.
their parents pull them to the next team, or because the dad thinks his kid should be on the top club team, he takes the kid and puts him on a team that maybe he's not going to be successful on, and that kid's going through this and the dad doesn't even realize it. There's a lot of, sometimes I wonder, are we teaching winning at that level, and how to execute, and the camaraderie like that we had growing up, playing up together from age 11 to, graduating high school. I wonder if they get that, playing from club team to club team and scout team. And there's benefits to it too. A lot of them are friends from other schools, and they get that kind of thing that we didn't have too much. And so there's some good things too. I'm not knocking everything or saying it's all bad, but there's some things that worry me as a parent. And, I have the outlook of a coach on the other side, because you and I both know Bishop Gorman is only Bishop Gorman for 3 months, and we're a club team for the rest of the year. And so we deal with all the same club issues that all the other baseball clubs deal with. So
Sure. Yeah,
a lot of baseball.
absolutely.
And they're all trying to get to, you got 6 teams all trying to get to that one elite team, and it's hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, man, this has been awesome. Do you have any last piece of advice or any last story that you wanted to share with us?
Chad, I'm going there, and that's why I'm dressed in full uniform. So I got to see, luckily, the video of Fry.
Yep.
And I've never seen his videos before. But I want to meet the guy. I want to give him a hug, and I want to give him all my millions of ideas on what he can do on his next video, because
Okay.
I have. Because I've been dealing with this same thing with hitting and launch angle and getting back on plane, or it's all nonsense to me. And I know people argue this all day long, but I'm just giving my 2 cents and backing him up right now.
Yeah.
That you got to get from point A to the baseball as quick as possible. Anytime you drop your hands, you're in trouble. And here's where the Stanford thing comes in. It's physics that for the ball to carry, you need to get backspin on the ball. Like how I point out my window there.
Right.
It needs to carry, way out there. But yeah, you gotta hit the ball with backspin. It's got to come off the bat the right way. And if the barrel's underneath the ball, it's just simple physics. You can't get the right carry. Now, there's guys that might tell themselves something, and whatever they're telling them, if it works, hey, it works. And I got nothing against that, but a lot of kids are getting the wrong message. I had a dad on me because I was teaching his kid to just pull down on the ball, pull down. And he said, hey, don't ever tell my kid to hit and do the ground again. I said, well, don't bring your kid to my practices anymore. And, there's a video with Trout and A-Rod, and A-Rod talks about Bonds, hitting the ball right into the ground to start batting practice. Trout's talking about top hand. Gallo's in the cage just saying he's trying to backspin it to center. I mean, the only new thing about launch angle is they can measure it now. It's not a new phenomenon. So
there's always an angle the ball comes off the bat.
Yes. Yes, it's coming off at some angles. Sometimes it's not a good one. But I would never want my son or one of my players worried about the launch angle of the ball is just,
Yeah.
it's fun to measure, but it's useless.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I just needed to back that up. That's all.
No, it's been good. Yeah. It's, and again, you know, some guys will have some success doing some different things, you know, that you and I did, or what Jeff Fry did. And I mean, that's probably a whole different show, right?
Oh, I've thought about doing what he did. So when I saw those, I was cracking up.
Yeah.
But I think you and I were at Stanford together, and we were watching Josh Donaldson talk about his mentality.
Yep.
And I'm going to put it on the record right now. I'm not one to talk about Josh Donaldson's swing when he can hit the ball much farther than I can, and he's got a great swing. And whatever he thinks is great for him. But when I would see his swing, I would see lightning quick hands getting to the baseball, even though he's talking about something else.
Right.
And whatever works for him works for him. He, great player, got nothing, like, again, I'll take that with a grain of salt. I'm not knocking the guy at all, but it's just funny how we look at different things. But, there's different ways to do things, but I'm a big believer that you can't get underneath the ball or you're just going to create a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know why I had to give my 2 cents on that, but I loved it. So
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get you in touch with me and give some ideas.
yeah. Awesome. There we go.
Awesome. Well, Nick,
Always
dude,
fun, man.
I appreciate your time, dude. This has been outstanding. And I'm looking forward to seeing Connor, continue to grow, and hopefully he turns into a beast, and it'll be fun.
I'm not saying that you should start scouting 12-year-olds, Chad, but he's almost bigger than I am.
Yeah.
He's enormous. It's crazy.
So he's 12. He's what 6'2"? What's the size?
He's almost 5'11".
Okay.
But he has more muscle than I do. I don't know how he got it, but he does.
Yeah. Fortnite,
But
bro.
he never got an awkward phase. He just got super athletic. He hit puberty, developed, and got even faster, stronger. It's just kind of weird. It never slowed him down. So
yeah. Okay.
But he still has a lot of a long way to go. That's for sure.
Sure. Absolutely. It's a long grind.
Oh yeah.
All right, brother. I appreciate your time, and we will see you soon, man.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Okay, we'll see you.
Everyone, hi.
Okay, we'll do.
All right.